Jake from State Department, who is a diplomat in the same way that Jake from State Farm is an insurance agent.
Jake.
He was on this week, talking about Ukraine and explaining to Jonathan Karl that, the Biden administration is going to take whatever's nailed down and ship it off to Ukraine in the last 50 days.
What are you telling your Ukrainian counterparts about American support in 51 days after Biden leaves office?
Well, first, what I'm saying is we are going to do everything in our power for these 50 days to get Ukraine all the tools we possibly can to strengthen their position on the battlefield so that they'll be stronger at the negotiating table. And President Biden directed me to oversee a massive surge in the military equipment that we are delivering to Ukraine so that we have spent every dollar that Congress has appropriated to us by the time that President Biden leaves office. So that's first and foremost what we're focused on. And then I've encouraged the Ukrainian team to engage the incoming team as well as to engage all of our allies and partners because, again, on January 21st, the war in Ukraine doesn't just go away. Obviously, the new team will have its own policy, its own approach, and I can't speak to that. But what I can do is make sure that we put Ukraine in the best possible position when we hand off the baton.
Wait a second. Could I follow up since Jonathan Karl? You can't speak to that. You were one of the purveyors of the Russian collusion hoax going back to 2016, weren't you, Jake?
Oh, yeah.
You can speak to it. I mean, you've been saying all along that Trump is a Manchurian candidate for Putin. Why stop now? Please continue. Anyway, just wanted to get one more from Jake in before he disappears into academia somewhere after he leaves office with the big guy and Hunter. Related story, Alexander Vindman and Elon Musk are going back and forth. This is kind of interesting. Not the only man accused of being a Putin asset. I'm talking about Trump. Elon Musk, too. Vindman, who you might recall usurped the president's foreign policy making authority back in Trump 1.0, is accusing Musk of divulging state secrets to Vlad Putin, and that the real reason he supports Trump is because Putin ordered him to do so. Elon Musk firing back. Vindman is on the payroll of Ukrainian oligarchs and has committed treason against the United States, for which he will pay the appropriate penalty. Wow. The appropriate penalty for treason is, so it's getting more than a little chippy. Now, of course, because this is sort of a bad episode of Get Smart, you may recall that Vindman, Alexander, has an evil twin, or maybe he's the evil twin, or maybe they're both evil twins, named Eugene Vindman, who just somehow got elected to Congress in Virginia, and he's threatening Musk on behalf of his brother with a defamation suit.
Yeah, well, I would say that if anybody's on the cusp of having to pay, maybe Elon Musk, because his comments are really false and defamatory, no basis in fact. And so I think he needs to dial back what he said. My brother served honorably in the Army. He's fought and bled on battlefields for this country. And every statement that Elon Musk has made is false. And so I think he needs to dial that back. Otherwise, he's the one in jeopardy of having to pay for defamation.
Well, truth is an absolute defense of defamation. So, I guess we can find out if he's on the payroll. I'm sure Doge could if he's on the payroll of Ukrainian oligarchs. Just to add another wrinkle to this, it's getting almost to the point of farce here. Vlad Putin saying that Trump is smart and experienced, but and he says, I think he will find a solution to the Ukraine war, but he's not safe even now. Putin saying gangsters don't even do this in Russia. When criminal gangs fight, they don't touch children and women. Talking about Putin talking about Trump and his family, including his children, being subject to a weaponized legal system. So there's a little bit of Putin stirring the pot. Obviously, you can't take anything that a dictator like Putin says at face value. He's trying to advance his own interests. But to distill all of this swirl surrounding Russia and Ukraine, or maybe Keith Kellogg is the person that's going to distill it all. But we're pleased to be joined, as we are weekly, by Stephen Bucci, who served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us, as always.
Oh, it's always my pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me back.
You want to punt this to Keith Kellogg, or do you want to chime in on these various matters of Biden's last 50-day policy, Musk and Team Vindman going back and forth, Putin being very concerned about Trump's health and so forth? How does this all shake out, or is this just a lot of hot air?
Well, I'll leave General Kellogg to be able to handle it. He's an old friend, and I worked for him in Iraq. He'll be able to handle it, but I'm happy to give my opinion on it. Mr. Vindman there, the chubby one with the Army uniform, it's irritating to me because I was a foreign area officer also. I did the same kind of job he did in general. I wasn't on the National Security Council staff, but I have to tell you, number one, people in his job, their title was director of Ukraine policy. First of all, they don't direct anybody. It's a one-person job. And in this case, he had made the decision that he was the one making policy for the United States of America, and that President Trump and everybody else were just the puppets whose strings he pulled. He made the decisions, and they were just supposed to execute it. And when Trump didn't do that, gee, big surprise, he's actually the President of the United States. Vindman thought, I better report this because this is an impeachable offense that he's doing something different than what I recommended in my statement paper that I gave to him before the phone call. That is so ludicrous, guys. It is beyond ridiculous. He was a junior lieutenant colonel, just been promoted. And I don't know how much he bled on the battlefield, but I got to tell you, foreign area officers, for the most part, have not been on the battlefield since before they were captains, because they go to grad school, they do all this stuff. I was kind of an aberration because as a special forces guy, the skill sets sort of blended, so I used the same skill sets in both of my specialties, the foreign area officer and the special forces. Vindman did not. He was purely a staff guy sitting there writing position papers. So, no offense to the congressman-elect there, his twin brother, but no, his brother did lie. His brother was so unprofessional as to be an embarrassment to all of us who wore the Army uniform and who were in the particular specialty of a foreign area officer. And I would say to him, you better watch what you say, bud, because you may think your brother's telling the truth and Elon Musk is lying, but Elon Musk has the money to do a defamation suit against Vindman, and I'd like to see Vindman's proof for the ridiculous act against Musk. That's just, he is walking into a gunfight, not even with a pocket knife, man. He's going in with a spoon. So I think he should just back away from that as much as he can. With regard to Sullivan, though, I got to tell you, I'm with you. Sullivan is dictating policy of war when the man has never lifted a weapon, never been anywhere near a battlefield, has been an insider, underhanded kind of player with the Russian collusion hoax. He is not the man who should be doing this. And it's sad, but they can do exactly what Sullivan just said in your clip he could do. They're going to do everything they can with the money that's already been appropriated to try and get, as much to Ukraine as they can. I don't think that's the way to do it. You're a lame duck now. You should back off and start to pass that baton so it goes smoothly on January 20th not do a policy that's in complete opposition to what you know the guy coming in is going to do until you leave. That's just sour grapes and very, very disruptive.
But of course, Putin knows he's a lame duck too. So I mean, pushing as much money as you can out the door to Ukraine in the next 2 months. I mean, that doesn't change Putin's calculus. It doesn't change anybody's calculus because it's going to be a completely different ballgame on January 21st. So how do we interpret what you heard from Putin talking, positively about Trump, and he can find a way to end this, and the continued reports that suggest that the two sides to the negotiating table is not far off? Is that to be taken at something approaching face value or not?
No, Putin's just trying to make mischief. Look, I think the Trump administration, when they come in, will do everything they can to bring this thing to a conclusion, to stop the killing, and it's probably not going to make the solution won't make Putin happy, and probably won't make Zelensky happy, but it'll probably bring an end to it in a way that's as close to a legitimate solution as we can get. I'm not sure what that is going to look like 100%. Putin certainly doesn't know what it's going to look like, but he is going to make as much mischief as he can. So discount what Putin says. Listen to the Trump people when they talk about it. And, Keith Kellogg is not a pushover. He's not somebody that's just going to roll over. He's certainly not a lover of Putin by any means. I think the policies with Trump's direction and then Keith Kellogg executing it, I think it's going to be in pretty good hands.
I wanted to ask you about the U.S. brokered Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire deal. How do you think that's going?
I'm pretty dubious about that. Hezbollah and Hamas both are not legitimate negotiating partners. They lie. They don't have a ton of control over their own people. I would be very surprised if this ceasefire lasts more than a week or so. But we'll see. I hope it lasts. But I really wish they had allowed the Israelis to really get in there and finish the job with Hezbollah, continue the finishing of the job with Hamas, so that when our new administration steps up, that the Israelis have finished the job. But, the Biden administration dearly wants to stop them. They want to throw a bone to the Iranians yet again. And this administration, in my mind, is done. They should stop their stuff, hold what they got, and pass this off, because they are not being productive or protective of U.S. national interests and certainly not of Israeli national interests.
Well, if the ceasefire does hold, that may be bad news as well, in the sense, and this is from our conversation with Leo Leibowitz from Tablet back on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, because it provides Hezbollah time it needs to sort of reconstitute itself after its senior leadership got decapitated by Israel. So the argument that he made is this is exactly what Hezbollah is looking for, some time to reorganize, and rather than, as you were just saying, go in and Israel to go in and finish the job.
Yeah, I would concur with that. My only twist on it would be what I mentioned is I don't think Hezbollah is going to be able to stop themselves from shooting more rockets. And once they start to do that, the Israelis are going to go, okay, fine, ceasefire's over, let's go for it. But at least then the Israelis will say, look, we tried, we listened to you guys again against our better judgment, we're done with that, and just move out. It just annoys me that this has been our administration, the Trump or the Biden administration, is still trying to hamstring Benjamin Netanyahu as he pursues the destruction, rightfully, of Hezbollah and Hamas.
What about Trump's newly announced Middle East advisor, Mossad Boulos, who also happens to be Tiffany Trump's father-in-law? He's a successful Lebanese-American businessman. He's been involved in politics in Lebanon previously. Do you have any particular perspective on his addition to the team?
Interestingly, I know there's some people out there who don't like him, think he's a bad guy, and they're like, oh gosh, he's related to him. Yeah, he trusts him, and I have seen people able to operate in the Middle East based solely on their previous civilian business connections. The guy who was the comptroller for the Department of Defense, a fellow named Dov Zakheim, actually a rabbi from New York City, also a businessman and a lawyer, and he was the money guy. So when the war on terror started, he was the one trying to get all these countries to contribute money to the effort. And I asked him, I said, sir, how the heck did you, nice Jewish boy from New York, get to know all these, Muslim potentates all over the world? He said, Booch, we're doing work. We're doing business together. There's no problem between Jews and Arabs. There's only problems when you do politics. Because I'm talking money to them, so it's business. So having someone like Tiffany Trump's father-in-law might be a wonderful addition to the Trump administration, because he's going to have connections nobody who spent all their time in the Washington think tank academic realm will ever have.
That's a good point. Speaking of the Middle East, continue to speak on that. The situation in Aleppo and Syria generally, is there a real possibility that Assad's regime could collapse? And if that's possible, then what would the implications be?
Certainly, there's a real possibility of it. There's definitely not a guarantee of it. Look, Assad is a horrible guy. I remember when he came to power, when his dad died, and everybody thought, oh, he's the enlightened, educated one. This is going to be such an improvement. And he turned out to be a complete disaster. He's probably worse than his father. The father was an old-fashioned thug. Bashir is like a 2024 thug. He uses the engines of the state to do it, not just a bunch of guys with pliers pulling out thumbnails and stuff. So the problem with Syria is almost everybody there are bad guys. So if they get rid of Bashir al-Assad, we don't have any particular guarantee that somebody better is going to step in, and there's a high likelihood that it could be somebody worse. Saying that, I'm not saying let's leave Bashir al-Assad in. I think he should go straight to hell where he belongs. But we do need to then go in with eyes open and understand that, okay, there's somebody new. Now we got to make sure we play that game smartly so that we have as much influence over whoever steps in as possible. But anybody who thinks, it's all going to be flowers and unicorns once Assad is gone doesn't understand the landscape there in Syria.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Santa's coming to town. Oh, my God.
On AM 560.
Santa here? I know him.
The Answer.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
My debt problem started probably about 2016. I needed my life to change financially. I called Trinity, and I ended up joining based on high credit card bills and high interest rate. And my counselor at Trinity has been great, and Trinity has been helping me to get on the right path of paying off these credit card bills, bringing down the interest rate. They have consolidated my bills into one low monthly payment. And now I am finally getting out of credit card debt. So I just want to say thank you, Trinity, for showing me a better and greater path.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Sharon, and soon I will be debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976.
All right, once again, our Food for the Poor campaign is underway as we help to provide life-saving food to children in Latin America and the Caribbean. During this season of economic decline, unemployment, and rising food costs, you know what I'm talking about, millions of children and their families are suffering